Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Eric Toring. I'm the Senior Vice President for the American College of Veterinary Preventive Medicine. And I want to welcome you today to this afternoon's webinar. Today, we're going to have a panel of veterinarians that are going to discuss career opportunities in industry and the commercial sector. Quick administrative announcement, this webinar is recorded, and we will be taking or posting that recording to the ACVPM YouTube page probably in about 5 to 7 days. The other announcement is our panelists have agreed to take questions at the end of today's webinar. So if you do have a question, please enter it into the question and answer feature of Zoom. We will keep track of those questions and pose those to the panelists at the end of the session. So at this time, it's my pleasure to turn this session over to Dr. Kristen Vole, who is our chairperson for the ACVPM's Partners Committee. Kristen?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I know there's a lot of interest in veterinary careers outside of clinical practice, and we've been fortunate to have many of our colleagues come on to these webinars to speak to us about their job and what they did prior and what they did to get into the field and any advice that they may have for people interested. So we're, again, really fortunate to have that. Want to thank ahead of time our colleagues, Dr. Fanninsteel, Dr. Brooks, and Dr. Becton for being here tonight. And with that, we'll turn it over to our first panelist. Thank you.
All righty. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come talk to us. I'm super excited to be here. You can advance the slide and let's get going. So I'm Dr. P. I am UGA College of Vet Med, class of 06. And I run Dirigo Food Safety, and I started my food business because I wanted to be a lab animal vet, and I got out of the Army in 2009. And the market for laboratory animal veterinarians sort of fell apart in the Great Recession. And I had little babies at the time that I was trying to feed. I had been posted to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and y'all might not know this, but New Jersey is in fact the Garden State. And there is a tremendous amount of our food that goes through New Jersey, which is why I had been posted there. And I had learned all of these skills of food safety in the Army, and I was like trying to buy from all of these small farmers. And I would go to farmers markets and I would talk to people, and they'd be like, I can't figure out what the USDA wants me to do so I can start a slaughterhouse. I can't figure out how to make, sausage. I can't figure out, all of these things that I kind of helped. Like I learned either in vet school, in vet track in the Army, or doing, going out into the world, like community, and doing audits with the Army. And my business actually started when the largest organic producer in Maine came up to me at the Maine Ag Trade Show. He's a lovely old gentleman named Raz Caldwell, and he says, "Hey, I hear you can write a HACCP plan." And I said, in true New England fashion, he said, "Can I pay you to write me a HACCP plan?" And I said, "You sure can." And that was how my business was born 10 years ago. So I started, so I started Dirigo Food Safety because I wanted to help small local processors with all of the food safety regulations so that I could buy the food I wanted to buy for my family. And I did it because it's very intellectually challenging and intellectually gratifying. And I have like truly moved into the online space. I was actually here before the pandemic, but I did spend an awful lot of time. Yeah, hi. This is the cat. He's been with me since 2 days before vet school started. He's 21. but I had moved into the online space before, kind of before the pandemic. But as you can imagine, it's really kind of difficult to either go audit facilities or to work with people on their facilities problems and their food safety problems, sitting behind a desk. And so in the pandemic, what ended up happening is I recognized I really needed a more robust online solution. And so I started an online membership called Food Safety University, where for $15,000, a food manufacturing company can come in and get meat and poultry HACCP certified, intro to HACCP certified, preventive control certified. I teach fisheries HACCP. I teach a sales system called Book Yourself Solid. I have the only online plant manager course that I know of. I teach humane handling and good commercial practices, and I do it all in an asynchronous manner so that my clients can get what they need, because not everybody's going to be able to afford to have me come or take the time out from their production day to have me all up in their business for 3 days, right? And so I do this because I love solving market problems, right? And as veterinarians, with all the skills and things that we have, what we get the opportunity to do is look at all of the people who we have the potential to serve. And we can ask ourselves, where can I best apply my joy and my intellect and all of these things that we learned how to do in vet school, and all of these, like when we look at preventive medicine and we look at it from a holistic standpoint, there are so many people we can help. And I have the absolute privilege of being able to help so many people through food safety. And so if you want to advance the slide, I'll tell you how I do that. So what happened was, folks, I write a killer HACCP plan. I am super good. I'm like one of the only people you will ever know that has gotten a not heat treated, shelf stable ground product through USDA FSIS, right? So including beef. So I get lots of logs of reduction when we use the processes that I have put together, right? But what would happen is I would write all of these beautiful standard operating procedures and logs and HACCP plans, and I would literally hand my clients binders, right? And they'd look at me and they'd say, now what? Right? Because you can't run a food manufacturing facility on standard operating procedures any more than you can run a clinic on standard operating procedures. The problems that we have in clinics, the problems that we have in workplaces are problems that generally occur between people's ears. And so I certified as a life coach 4 years ago, and I coach my clients to do the right thing the right way every single time they do it. And the ability to have those conversations about toxic workplaces, conversations about why are the hoses left on the floor? Everybody knows we pick up the hoses, right? This is not a mystery to anybody. But people leave things on the floor because there are other reasons that they have. It's almost never that they're not trained. Maybe 1 time out of 10, they're not trained. Most times they're trained to pick it up, but they're not doing it for one reason or another. And so I apply the tools of life coaching to food safety to make more robust businesses, safer businesses, businesses that are able to show up and do the work of food safety as a team together every day. And so that is me. I look forward to your questions at the end of the talk.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Fantasil. Our next speaker is Dr. Scott Brooks.
Thanks, Dr. Turing. Appreciate it. And Dr. Fansteel, I appreciate your comments. So I'll give you a little bit different perspective now from more of the corporate food safety industry perspective, if you will, in the food industry. DVM from Texas A&M in 90, and then I did the MPVM, Preventive Vet Medicine, and the Masters of Food Science, specifically focused on food microbiology at UC Davis, finished that in 96, and then took my boards right after I finished that in 96. So currently I'm the Senior Vice President for Food Safety and Quality Assurance at Tyson Food. And I think, in a nutshell, I can describe this role as my brand new colleague, who's the Vice President of Communications for Tyson, is that it's never a dull moment. And this is an issues-rich environment. And many of you probably know what I mean. The meat industry, meat and poultry industry is constantly under attack from all sides, but damn, we make good products. And I really am proud of that. I'm a proud omnivore with strong carnivore tendencies, and really enjoy my position at Tyson Foods. To give you all an idea a little bit about Tyson, I don't want to be too much of an advertisement here, but we are one of the largest producers of animal proteins in the world. Certainly in the US, we are very large. We make about 20% of all the animal protein, that's specifically chicken, beef, and pork, produced in the US. That's about 20% of it. 1 out of every 5 servings, in other words, are produced by Tyson. So I take that as a big responsibility, and it's something that can generate some great rewards, but also some great stress at times because of all the challenges that go along with the meat industry. We are number 1 in chicken, and people think of Tyson. Most people say, you work for a chicken company. Well, actually, I work for a protein company. In fact, that's in the title of my signature title is Tyson Foods, the protein company. So we're number 1 in chicken. We're number 2 in beef production and number 3 in pork production. We have about 120 producing facilities in the world. The majority of those are in the US, but we're also spread throughout Asia and some in Europe, and we're undergoing some mergers and acquisition activity right now in other parts of the globe. So it's a pretty exciting time to be at Tyson for sure. So we produce products that you see under the Tyson label in the grocery stores, like at Walmart. You'll see Tyson labeled chicken, but many of our products, you wouldn't necessarily know that they're produced by Tyson unless you look at the label or you ask the food service company you buy it from, your chicken from. So some of our brands include Hilscher Farms, includes Jimmy Dean's sausage, Adel's sausage, State Farm, Ballpark Franks. And if you like good bacon, if you've never tried Wright brand bacon, WRIGHT brand bacon, that is the best bacon in my opinion. And I'm not trying to be biased because of Tyson, but that really is a good product. So with those 120 facilities though that we have about 140,000 team members, just slightly under that. And my responsibility over food safety and quality includes about 3,500 of those team members. So 3,500 team members working in food safety and quality and regulatory across Tyson. It also includes a laboratory network of 18 ISO accredited laboratories on a global basis, and a lot of team members ensuring safe products along the way. So we actually have a reporting structure where I don't mean to use this in a negative way, but the lowest level team member in food safety and quality assurance reports in a line directly up to me. And that's in order to help manage the concerns about the fox watching the hen house at the plant level, if you will, because they work very closely with plant leadership and we trust that everything will go right, but having that structure helps us ensure that they have a direct line to me if there are any concerns at the plant level that need to be raised. So previously though, before Tyson, I was started off in private practice, went into the Air Force as a public health officer, did 9 years on active duty, and then spent another 4 years in the Air Force Reserves. Had to finally give that up because after I left active duty, I went to Yum Brands, and it was taking too much of my time to do the military, which killed me because I absolutely loved and thoroughly enjoyed, was very proud of my time on active duty and reserve duty in the military. But I went to work for Yum Brands, especially started at the Taco Bell brand. And some of the knuckleheads that I worked with in the military would call me up and immediately before saying hi, they'd start placing their order. And I'd kind of laugh about that. They'd start ordering tacos or burritos or whatever, and these goofballs. But it's a highlight of the point that in the food industry, a veterinarian, a lot of people will wonder, well, what are you doing? My wife would get questions. He works at Taco Bell. Oh, really? Which one? Or she also got this question. That really happened. She also got this question. Oh, really? Is he a manager? And a lot of people just think food shows up, whether it's at the restaurant they're eating at or at the grocery store. I don't think veterinarians in this crowd, but there are a lot of the population that have never grown up around a farm and don't really kind of get that. Anyway, I also spent time with Food Safety Net Services, which is a laboratory service company, as well as auditing and consulting services and many other things. And then went on to PepsiCo. And PepsiCo is one of the largest food companies in the world, not just Pepsi products, but also brands like Quaker Oats and Tropicana and Gatorade and all of the Frito-Lay products that you can possibly imagine on a global basis. We operated in over 200 countries and had over 1,000 production facilities. And then also spent time with Kraft Heinz and left after we were acquired by Heinz. I started off with Kraft. Why the food industry? Well, why did I choose this route? Well, I have a passion for food. Sometimes I enjoy it too much, and I have to ride my bike to help make sure that I keep some of those extra pounds because of my passion off. But I have a passion for food, but I also have a passion for public health, as evidenced by the fact I was a public health officer in the Air Force. And I also have a passion for business. I am a true capitalist at heart. And these things are not mutually exclusive. They actually go together quite well. And producing safe food that tastes good is good for business. It's good for public health. And I put all those together and I really enjoy it. In fact, having served in the government and more of the kind of the regulatory role, if you will, as a public health officer in the Air Force, I worked with a lot of my colleagues, and I know we have some on this call, I'm sure, that are with USDA or FDA or CDC. Incredibly important roles and make a huge difference. But that's kind of the policy setting or kind of the investigation side. And what I'm involved with every day and what gives me a lot of passion is actually making sure that every product that goes out the door every day is safe, high quality food. It's a challenge, right? Not everything is perfect. We do have issues occasionally, but that's what my team does every day. And it's a real joy to be able to do that and see smiles on people's faces, including my family, when they bite into a really good steak or a good piece of chicken or other good products like that. So what the food industry, how did I get into that? Or like what happened? So I ended up, was on active duty, and there was a position. I was getting near where I was going to have to PCS. Position came open at Taco Bell for a senior manager of food safety. And I applied online. This was back in 1999. I feel really old saying that. And I got deployed right after I applied. Didn't have a cell phone, but when I got back, there was a message on my machine. That was a couple months later. And I thought maybe I missed out on it, but it was Taco Bell wanted to talk to me. And I went in to interview, and the head of R&D and quality, who was on the leadership team at Taco Bell, had just been through a recent issue. There were some questions about the safety of our taco meat at Taco Bell. This was before I joined, but I was interviewing, and she had just been in the production facility. It was a USDA inspected plant talking to the USDA veterinarian. So here I was, a veterinarian with a background in food science showing up and background in epidemiology from my MPVM. And she thought that sounded like a pretty good fit. And so I came on board. But I was kind of lucky, though, that she had that experience and understood that, because automatically, and other companies I've been in, it's the food science degree, which has primarily opened the door for me. But most of these things have been through relationships anyway. So I got referred. Somebody said, you ought to talk to Scott about this role or something. So I would get referred for the positions. The food science degree, to be honest with you, the business leaders get that. There's food scientists in R&D and in quality already in companies. And that's what most of the people that do the kind of work that I do have as a background, some kind of a food science, food microbiology, food chemistry, sometimes engineering, food engineering kind of backgrounds. But then the benefits of having a veterinarian on staff start to show up. And, you're seeing it today. Where we've got at Tyson, you've probably seen in the media that avian influenza is a big challenge in the country right now, and some of the farms that supply to us have been a challenge. Now, Tyson is probably the one company I've been with where people get the value of having a veterinarian on staff, because we did have live production veterinarians, we do, but I'm the one who actually translate that information to the leadership team at Tyson and helps them understand the epidemiology of avian influenza, what's likely to occur, explain some of the export impact issues and things like that. And we also have live production veterinarians who are really good to do that as well. And I have some colleagues that are really good at that are veterinarians as well that do that. But nevertheless, it's a good fit in a place like Tyson, but you sometimes have to create that. Where I've been when I was at Yum Brands, was at the corporate office after I was at Taco Bell brand. And that was when avian influenza was hitting high hitting a high level of concern in the 2004, 2005 timeframe, and we put together our pandemic influenza plan, which I was a key part of, and then maintain that plan going forward for Yum Brands. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of the advantages of food industry beyond just the passion for food, public health, and business. And there are no doubt some financial advantages to working for the food industry, or really in corporate America, frankly. And some people may be offended by that, but it's a reality. And I looked around and I saw, there's so many people that don't have a DBM. They don't have a doctorate. My gosh, that some of them barely did a 4-year college degree. And look at all this money that they're making. And, you realize that in the corporate world, there are a lot of good things and people are going to make this money. So why not join in, right? When it fit together with my passion. But in the corporate world, the base salaries tend to be substantially better than what I kind of watch and see in the industry, or at least in the government positions and academic positions that are advertised. The salaries tend to be a little bit higher. You see some of that in the AVMA publication about salaries. But in addition to the salaries, though, then there are short-term incentives and long-term incentives, and those can be substantial percentages. So somebody coming into the industry might see something in the range of 15% as a target bonus at a low level, a senior manager, and then it can go substantially magnitudes of order higher than that as you move up in industry. So that's an annual bonus kind of program. Now, that's also subject to the performance of the business if it doesn't do well. But then there's long-term incentives as well. So if you're a publicly held company particularly, that's things like stocks or stock options, and that can significantly add to the value of working for industry. So when I was on active duty and in the reserves, I was doing some of the math, and it clearly was advantageous compared to that very important benefit that many of our government attendees might be thinking about, which is the government retirement program, which is very solid, very strong, and can do very well. But nevertheless, you can do a lot better in the industry with stocks if things go right. It's not a guarantee, but I thought I'd at least acknowledge that because it'd be the elephant in the room if I didn't. And it's a significant advantage to being on the industry side. I don't want to overstate it, but just to highlight a couple of things. So what do we do? This is encompassing the kinds of things I do at Tyson, although there are many more than this list. And, this is involved from things like supplier management. We have over 1,700 suppliers at Tyson that we audit and manage their performance on a day in, day out basis. We do, of course, food safety and quality management in the plants, HACCP plans, or we have a lot of FDA regulated facilities as well. So food safety plans. We do all kinds of things in the plant, interacting with USDA inspectors in facilities. We also have co-manufacturers. Tyson, for example, has just under 80, that's 80, facilities that co-manufacture for us. So maybe a new product comes out, we don't have the capacity to produce it ourselves or the right equipment. So we have co-manufacturers that'll make it for us, put our label on everything. So you can imagine the oversight of that is very significant. If that's our product label they're putting on it. Distribution, making sure that things are done right there in distribution. And of course, I mentioned laboratory testing. If you can go to the next slide, please. And this is my final slide. More. So product risk assessment. We're creating new products all the time. A lot of goes into ensuring that product is designed for safety, whether it's going to be refrigerated or not, or needs to be frozen, or if it can be shelf stable as well. So crisis recall management. That runs the gamut of everything. So COVID-19 hits a couple of months after I joined Tyson. Our health and safety leader, who's a peer of mine, knows a lot about safety, but knows very little about infectious diseases. So I was a key part of us in our response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and interacted with many of the colleagues, maybe some are on the phone here today, that were really great to work with at CDC and NIOSH, and just some great experiences working with some really good professionals there. So thank you if you're on the phone for your collaboration. Obviously working with trade associations and non-governmental organizations, universities, research programs, and things like that. I have a customer relations group. We take over 250,000 customer contacts a year. And this is compliments, but it also is complaints, but we have to get that voice of the consumer to continuously improve. And if there is a problem, we want to know about that as soon as possible so we can address it. I mentioned mergers and acquisitions. My team and myself are involved in due diligence when we buy companies to make sure that their facility designs are adequate for our food safety and quality. We are constantly reviewing new technology for laboratory testing, processing, robotics and things like that that are under review. And then I, on a quarterly basis, present to the Tyson Board of Directors the status of food safety at Tyson and our programs and quality systems. So I'm going to stop there. And there's one more slide that has my email address on it that you are welcome to reach out to me. And I just gave my personal address because it would get lost potentially if it comes to my Tyson address with all the emails I get, but I'd be happy to visit with anybody that has further questions. So thank you, Dr. Toring. Appreciate the time.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Brooks. And our third panelist this afternoon is Dr. Lisa Beckton. Dr. Beckton, the floor is yours.
All righty. Thank you. Good evening to everyone. Sorry, I have a little bit different format, but I have to admit, I gave a presentation to some Washington State students a little while ago, and I kind of used the same presentation. So there you go. A little bit about me. Next slide, please. And so I'm going to come at this from, again, a different perspective because I actually represent our industry organization. And so I'll get into what that means. But essentially, I work for the National Pork Board, and that represents all pork producers within the United States. But how did I get there? Well, you can see my education history, Bachelor's of Science in Biology, and then my DVM at North Carolina State. I did a swine internship at NC State too, because it's a little bit interesting because at the time, it was more of a collaboration between a farm and the university and trying to pair up people that they would potentially hire down the road. And so they did. But it was really nice because I got to experience on-farm management and health management, but also have at least a little bit of the security blanket of being in an academic setting. So it was really a unique situation that I greatly took advantage of. And then lastly, my master's in food safety back out of Michigan State. A little else about me, I am a resident of North Carolina, even though our corporate office is in Des Moines, Iowa. I do have a lot of outdoor enthusiast things because we've got both the beach and the mountains, and that's a lot of fun. Obviously, with that comes eating North Carolina barbecue, which is pork. Sorry, guys, there's chicken, but I got to eat my pork, and seafood. And then my other hobby, but I think it's kind of sad, is my attempts at dog training. And you can see my two office staff basically lounging around on the job. So that never helps, but they try. And so why did this get me where I'm at? Why swine medicine? I am a self-professed suburbanite. I did not grow up on a farm. I didn't work pigs or even touch a pig really until my veterinary school days. And so when I got to vet school, I had some time in the summers and promptly got hired on at our school farm, which had poultry, which included turkeys and broilers, broiler chickens. We had beef, cattle, dairy, milk goats, and swine. And I really enjoyed the swine side of it. And one of my mentors and advisor, Dr. Glenn Almond, really steered me in the direction of production medicine because I enjoy the puzzle of trying to figure out what's happening in the herd health on a mass scale and farm side, because it is different thought process, different implementation of health management processes than it is on an individual clinical by clinical basis. And then you've heard from our other colleagues today that really we all have a passion for production of food. And so while I'm dealing with the live animal side, my end output, I have 100% mortality. Everything that I manage is eventually going to end up on somebody's plate at somewhere in point in time. And so that really has to guide my thought processes and practices when I was in production of how do I keep our food supply safe and secure. And so did that, got through. As I graduated vet school, I started with my first company in Hanover here in North Carolina, and we rapidly built from about 8,000 sows to about 25,000 sows in roughly a year and a half. Then I moved to Missouri and started with a company, Premium Standard Farms, which is now Smithfield Foods. But I enjoyed that experience because not only was I on farm, but really got to have my first foray into production at the plant side. And so now I could see live side and follow it through all the way to the production side, which is really exciting because you could see what you did and raised start to finish. At that time also, we were really groundbreaking on some things and started our first process verified program with USDA, which is a verification program. And that started back in 1999, looking at how do we verify all the things that we were doing on farm. And we really focused on food safety issues. And that coincided with our pork quality assurance program, which is also food safety. So a lot of really good stuff at that time. And then back in 2008, one of my friends, Dr. Liz Wagstrom, called me and said, "Hey, we got a position at Pork Board. Why don't you come up and interview?" And so I did. And then subsequently in April of 2008, left Premium Standard Farms and have been with the Pork Board ever since. Since that time, I've had a lot of opportunities when I go back and look at it. And one of those was the Swine Executive Veterinary Program. And that was based out of University of Illinois. And why is that such an interesting deal? Well, it's literally a group of veterinary practitioners focusing on swine. And we talk about everything from manure management to financials and partial budgeting to food safety to antibiotic use. Over a 2-year span, a group of us, about 15 of us, met every other month for about three days and went all these issues in a relatively regimented academic setting. And so that built a lot of our lifelong connections that I've used even to this day. I had an opportunity to go to Foreign Animal Disease Diagnostic School in 2001 through our American Association of Swine Veterinarians. Had a ball for those 2 weeks looking at foreign animal diseases. Have to admit, scared the absolute bejeebers out of me. But it was a very good experience. And it's unfortunate, or maybe it is fortunate, I'm not sure which, but we are seeing African swine fever now as a relatively huge global threat to our swine industry. And so I'm really thankful for that experience. And then I had a couple other colleagues tell me, you ought to expand your horizons, take on a challenge and look at getting your diplomat certification. And so started that process and eventually received my diplomat status in 2013. And then again, because I guess I get bored, I thought, well, let's do something else. And so I did a field epidemiology certificate at UNC Chapel Hill in their School of Public Health in 2018. And for any of you that understand the East Coast rivalry between NC State and UNC, realize how hard that was from somebody that is a wolf pack and bleeds red to going in and doing some classwork that bleeds blue. However, it was a very good class, and I'm glad I did it because it was a really nice way to look at public health and epidemiology and how does that relate backwards to epidemiology and evaluation on the animal health side for population medicine. So all sorts of fun experiences that I've had throughout my career so far. And then, this was in Seattle, this picture a couple summers ago. Couldn't resist the opportunity to heat check the brass pig at Seattle Market. Just saying, it's the nerd in me. Couldn't help myself. So what is the Pork Board? Who the heck are we? Well, we're called the Pork Checkoff, as you can see by the slides. We're an organization that was legally mandated through the Pork Act. And what that is every $100 or every 40 cents of $100 of value of pork sold comes back to our organization for research, promotion, and education. And that's it. We don't do lobbying. We don't do advocacy. We don't do any of that stuff. It's got to be research, promotion, and education. And so within that sphere, we represent all producers, whether you own 1 pig or 1 million, doesn't matter. Whether you're indoor, outdoor, organic, everybody's represented by the Pork Checkoff. As part of my duties and roles, I'm the director of swine health, and really essentially my goal is to fund and manage our research portfolio. And so over the years, I've been with Pork Board almost 14 years, and we've probably funded at least 313 different studies ranging on animal health, vaccines, disinfectant. A lot of these are scientific benchtop trials, but many are field-based. And so this is a cool opportunity because I get to work with not only academicians, but folks from DHS, Department of Homeland Security, USDA, Ag Research Service. You name it, we work with them. And right now we're doing a lot of African swine fever work, and that takes us to our overseas partners with people in Vietnam, in Canada, Thailand. And so really a lot of fun, exciting, and groundbreaking research. From that materials, we also develop and promote, do promotional education pieces. So never thought I'd have the educational side of the job, but I sure do. So it's a challenge sometimes to meet all of your audiences. And sometimes it's extremely scientific. Sometimes it's producer based. Sometimes it's even teaching fifth graders of what diseases are. And so we do a lot of presentations. We have a group called Neighbor to Neighbor. We go out into the community and talk about pork production and what we do as veterinarians to uphold our communities, our food safety, our community safety. So a lot of different things we get involved in. And then I also get to serve as a subject matter expert. And right now it's on foreign animal diseases, but in the past it's been things like influenza and PRRS, biosecurity. How does that relate on farm, and how does that save pig producers money? And this really can apply to any type of production. But farm security as of late's been a big one, because again, there's a lot of people that don't like what we do in any kind of food production, and will do things that will damage our farms, damage our reputation, and damage producer assets. And that's not good. So we've got to keep people aware. And then obviously my strong suit is swine health management from, multiple years managing many pigs. The last part I have about my job, I find extremely exciting, is working on the side that I can visit with a lot of other people. So different agencies, organizations, universities like the AVMA, USDA, and so many different branches, Department of Homeland Security. And so U.S. Animal Health Association, NAMI, National Animal Meat Institute, even AFIA, the feed associations and ingredients. And so this job and working with an industry association, there's never a dull day. We don't do the same thing twice, but we also get to interact with so many different people. And that's what it keeps me going day after day, is because it's not just, doing research, but it's really hopefully making people's lives better, not just the producers we serve, but the people that consume our products. And so that's really what gets me on fire every day. And this picture below is we had the opportunity to actually go to Plum Island and take our swine health committee and have them visit with the researchers that were doing critical research for these, foreign animal diseases, and pick their brain of, okay, what do you guys as researchers see important, and how do we as the pork industry do research to meet those needs? And so all of these opportunities I would never have had unless I ended up within this industry organization. And so, for this industry, there's not that many industry associations. I mean, we all have one kind of per species group, but I would say for folks that are looking at either new careers or coming into a career or looking for things to do, keep an open mind, be willing to try new things. When I was going into vet school, all I ever thought about was doing equine. That's all I was going to do. Still love my horses. But when I got into vet school and started to look at the farms and the opportunities in production, that really has sparked for me. And I had and sought out some really great mentors that guided me through and said, hey, this may not be what you want to do, but at least give it a try. In vet school, I wanted to be in dairy. Well, there's not that many dairies in North Carolina, except in the prison farms, and not really wanted to stay there. So for many reasons. And so I got into pork production because North Carolina was at that time either 1 or 2 in pork production. And so again, don't be afraid to seek out new opportunities, or if something trips your trigger, find out who's a lead in that or who's key, and go see if they'll mentor you or at least give you advice. This opportunity thing, that's a big one too. I didn't have any experience in production or even packing plant. And one day, one of the guys was going to be going down to a slaughterhouse in Trenton, North Carolina. And I said, hey, can I tag along? And it was fascinating. I didn't think it would be fun. And you always have to take things into consideration. But looking at the sacrifice the animals make to give us protein and foods, and looking at the hard work our producers do to get there, it really brought it home for me. That's what I wanted to be, or where I wanted to be, at least within my career. The other thing I would state is be a lifelong learner. everybody at work calls me their little scientific nerd, and that's fine, but it's true. I love to learn new things every day, and being able to seek out and talk with other people, not just in our industry, but in other industries like the beef side, the poultry side. We all can learn from each other. And even from our slaughter friends, our feed friends, there's so much to learn, to explore, and to understand that makes all of us better practitioners and better at what we do. So anyway, those are the things that I have. If you have any questions, there's my email as well. Please feel free to reach out. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, panelists. You can all rest well because we accomplished something today. And I just want to read one of the chat sessions. I'm a first-year veterinary student, and before I came to veterinary school, I worked as a manager at Purdue Farms for 2 years. I was unaware that there were positions available as a veterinarian for companies that were not government related. Thank you so much for the insight. And I think that goes to what Dr. Becton had to say is opportunities. I've always said the V for veterinarian also stands for versatile. We can do so many things, and there are veterinarians in so many sectors that unfortunately our veterinary students probably don't know about until they attend something like this or get exposed to it in some other manner. So panelists, I want to thank you. Attendees, we do have a couple questions, so I hope you can stick around. I will go ahead and read those questions off, and the first question is specifically for Dr. Scott Brooks. What did you do with the laboratory network you worked for? You mentioned it in your work history.
Yeah, so that was a company called Food Safety Net Services. They're still a very active company today, and actually quite large company today. I was their chief operating officer, so I oversaw all of our testing and laboratory and client consulting services at Food Safety Net Services. I worked for the owners. It was a privately held company.
Great. We've got another question. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Fanning-Seal.
Add something about laboratory testing. One of the things that I do with my clients all the time is figure out what should we be testing and when. And so if you have like an interest in laboratory sciences and things like that, there's on the food safety side of the house, I swear all we do is test, right? And there are just so many opportunities, and the field is so vast. So the FSIS had a 4-hour meeting today on salmonella, and some of you may have been there. And they are like, our regulatory environment is constantly challenging us. And if you have an interest in laboratory testing, there are really like a ton of ways to get into that and to really help companies understand not only what to test, but why we test and how to interpret the results from like a broader perspective. Because that's one of the things that you don't know that you're learning in ClinPath that comes over from your clinical experience is an ability to like look at a whole situation when we're working with laboratory testing. And I think that's a real unique thing that veterinarians have when we're working in the food industry.
Great insight, Dr. Fanning-Seal. We have a second question. Dr. Becton, how does the pork board interact with USDA, APHIS, Wildlife Services, and feral hog management? Or does that interaction exist at all?
Yes, that interaction does exist. We work really closely with a lot of the different USDA divisions, and the Wildlife Services and feral swine is one of those. A lot of times we can't advocate or request policy, but we do visit often about, they ask us our thoughts of what are some producer concerns or worries, or we'll ask in return, what are some research things that need to be done? So for example, right now we're in close talks with those groups on African swine fever. How do we manage Puerto Rico right now. They're looking at how do we manage feral hogs to really reduce the risk on that island as it pertains to mainland US, because it is in so close proximity with Dominican Republic, and Dominican Republic is now positive. But also we look at feral swine management here in the US, because we know feral swine carry diseases that we don't want in commercial production, like swine brucellosis, pseudorabies. They can carry erysipelas, leptospirosis, and a lot of other even zoonotic things. And so we provide a lot of input to wildlife services, even provide funding. We even took a group of producers from one of our swine health committee down to Texas to look at trapping operations and some of the research stations that they have, because we support a lot of those activities that are going on. When USDA asks for comments of plan of work and plan of action, we provide those. And also help right now, they've got the bigger plan. They received 26 million, I think it was several years ago. And so we also help just to provide input of where are some focus areas, what are concerns, how do we all manage and communicate together. So it's a really close working relationship.
All right. We have another question, and this is a great question for our veterinary student attendees. And we'll just go in the order of the speakers. We'll kick off with Dr. Pfannenstiel. How does your clinical experience impact what you do today? Would you recommend going into a clinical setting after graduating veterinary school before pursuing other opportunities in industry, regulatory medicine, et cetera?
Sure. So I'm going to be brutally honest. I had terrible clinical experiences. I think if you can have good clinical experiences with good owners and good support staff, I would do it, because there's a lot of fun in that. I mean, I have never been so humiliated by my colleagues as I was in clinical medicine. And so I'm not in clinical medicine anymore. I said goodbye to it, and I don't let the door hit you on the way out is kind of how I felt about that. And so I think if you have the emotional intelligence to be able to go in to interview and see a situation and not see it as a grad mill, where they're going to use you up and spit you out in 2 years as somebody who's like, and why did I get that DVM? Because that's a real issue in veterinary medicine right now. So if you know you've got a good practice to go to, I would do that. I think that a internship opportunity at a good internship program, especially if you're going to go into production medicine, like that's a big deal, is good. But I think that there are so many things that you can do with a DVM. And I think that if you listen to yourself in clinics, okay, I hated the small animal hospital. I liked the large animal hospital better. And I didn't know that before I got there. Like I went into veterinary medicine, honestly, because it was the hardest thing I could do. And I at some point thought there was like some celestial accountant keeping track of all the hard things that we do. Right. But I had a passion for medicine. I had a passion for like making animals feel better, and the human animal bond, right? And that really kept me going, especially because I mostly did lab animal medicine as part of my externships and things like that. And of the clinical experience I had mostly regulatory clinical experience. I of course ran when I was in the Army. I ran vet hospitals in New York, New Jersey. And I did a lot of community practice medicine and spays and neuters and military working dogs. And given what I'm doing right now, all of the experience I had in auditing and running a hospital is way more applicable to the world that I have now, because there was so much entrepreneurship associated with it. So that's what I would say. Clinical, yes, if you get a good experience. Entrepreneurship experience, let me tell you, it is is really fun to be an entrepreneur. And so if you can, find a veterinarian, I take externs to come teach you entrepreneurship. It's a big deal. You'll learn a lot. And like my colleague, Dr. Brooks, I am an inveterate capitalist, and I believe in the profit motive for people, even in a regulatory medicine setting. And I think all the different perspectives that you can get on that can be super helpful if they happen in non-toxic work environments.
Dr. Brooks?
Okay, yeah. So I was very fortunate when I was, back in high school, I worked for veterinarians. So I kind of had that experience in practice when I was in vet school. First couple of summers, before we went all year round, I had the good fortune of having an opportunity to work for a company called Zoicon. They made vet chem and Starbar products. You might be familiar with that. Some of the people in the audience here, Starbar products, for large animal pest control. And I worked in the R&D lab at this company, the summers of vet school. The head of R&D was a veterinarian with a PhD, Dr. Ron Chatfield. I don't know if he'd be listening. Haven't talked to him in a long, long time. His advice to me was, Scott, you ought to consider alternatives to private practice, but you really ought to get that private practice out of your blood. That was his recommendation to me. So I did that. I took his advice. I graduated vet school, went into private practice for 1 whole year. That was fantastic. Great experience. It taught me a lot. It gave me some career maturity that helped me be successful going forward. And frankly, still to this day, when might have colleagues, food scientists or somebody, that's just, junior, maybe coming in the industry, and they're very nervous talking to a senior executive or to the board of directors, because it's a big deal. That'd be like talking to General Touring, right? When you're a junior officer or a listed person or something, big deal, right? But I didn't really give a damn. I felt, I dealt with people in life and death situations with pets that they love. They were breaking down in tears. I was making decisions on animals' lives. And that gave me the confidence that, there is nothing that I can't handle. I don't want to be cocky about it, but the bottom line is, just study it, learn it, and you can accomplish this. So that I got out of private practice, in addition to the skills I learned in vet school, and then of course in the MPVM program and the food science program, technical skills, the reasoning skills and logic skills that have helped me in my career since. So I do recommend this. In my experience, it worked well to at least have a little practice in my blood. Got that out of the way. Fully love that. Keep my active practice license still today, in the hopes that maybe someday I might do it again, but you would not want me to do any surgery on your pet for sure right now, or large animal. But it was a great experience, gave me some skills, and has helped me in my career.
All right. And Dr. Beckton?
Yeah, I think, I got a little bit different perspective again, too. I never went into private practice. I went right from vet school to an internship and then into production medicine. My internship was a little bit different because while I did do clinical practice for the farms, one of the big things that I knew I didn't have as experience was actually practical production experience on farm. And so a lot of what I did was more managerial, and then I did the vet work on the side, which is a little bit kind of backwards from what a lot of people do. But I also learned really quick that with a lot of production folks that have a lot of time and tenure in the industry, if you don't know your way around a toolbox and what a pipe wrench does and how to thread a pipe in a water nipple, you're not going to make it. And so I could have all the clinical knowledge in the world, but if I couldn't get to producer speak and understand the root problem of why a room is not clean and where pigs are getting E. coli is because we're not getting the slats cleaned of manure, then I would lose a lot of credibility. And so I knew I didn't have production experience. I had small animal experience from high school and college. So I literally worked probably for the first 6 months just learning production management. And that was extremely helpful for me. It gave me credibility down the road so I could call people's bluff if they said, oh, no, that's not this, we did that. Well, no, it is that. And so that helped me and helped build on my clinical skills. And I did through a lot of our other veterinary associations, took additional skills on lab diagnoses and bacteriology and, what are the current diagnostics, because PCR was, relatively new technology when I first came out. So I took a lot of classes later, but for me, I didn't have the food animal cred of working on a farm or being born on a farm that I needed to learn that. And that's what I sought out and got. And that was invaluable to my career. And it led me to where I am today. Yeah, you can build that other knowledge, but that's where I say, again, don't be afraid to learn, experience it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The one thing that I didn't learn really coming out of vet school was people management and people interaction, because you get clinical, but you don't get people. And I'll be the first to admit, I blew up some relationships pretty good, not learning my people. And those are hard lessons to learn, but they're necessary. And I don't advocate going to do that, and there's a lot of different talks and things that you can do, and a lot of other mentorship, but I always took the good with the bad and tried to not repeat what I screwed up the first time. So take all the experience you can get, because it is helpful one way or the other. It's either going to be a good experience, it's going to be a bad experience. You're going to learn either way. And hopefully you don't have more of the bad than you do the good.
Great comments and great advice. I would echo each one of you that everything's a learning experience. Everything is good. If you start out in private practice, don't like it, well, you change to something that you do like. You might find that private practice is the thing for you, or clinical medicine. So it's one of those things where, and I go back to the versatility of a veterinarian. You walk out with a DVM and you've got some versatility behind you that you can do just about anything you want. Just got to seek it out and go for it. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I personally want to thank the panelists. Excellent job today. I appreciate your participation, and I will turn it over to Dr. Vole for any final comments.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to reiterate what Dr. Toring said and extend a really deep thanks to our panelists. It was excellent information on your career paths and what you did to get where you are, and your advice and your answers to the question. I think there are a lot of veterinarians out there and interested in maybe a change of clinical practice or what they're doing currently, and it's always helpful to have that information on how to get from point A to point B. And for our veterinary students on the call that, just like one said, just don't know what's out there, or the students that get to clinics and realize that may not be what they want to do, this has been fantastic. And we're looking at trying to do these webinars every couple months. So if you're on the call now and want to learn more about other fields, please just send us an email. Between our diplomats and the ACVPM and our veterinary colleagues and our partner organizations, the American Association of Food Safety and Public Health Veterinarians and the National Association of Federal Veterinarians and the United States Animal Health Association, we have a number of colleagues that we can reach out to share a variety of career opportunities. So please feel free to reach out and let us know if there's something more you want to hear about. But thank you everyone for attending. And again, a special thanks to our panelists.